Hey there, and welcome to a new episode of the Dietitian Success Podcast. I'm your host, Krista Kolajesic, and I am the founder of Dietitian Success Center. Every week, I record a new episode talking about 3 different topics related to business, entrepreneurship, and private practice for registered dietitians specifically. So I address 3 questions that have come up in our community through one-on-one coaching sessions, through our on-demand coaching feature, and I like to bring those answers to you all because if one person has that question, chances are some of you have that question too. So it's always just a fun opportunity to talk about entrepreneurship and business in different ways. I always like to start with a little personal update. So this weekend, my family and I, by family, I mean me, my husband, and my parents actually went to go and see Nate Bargatze. Nate Bargatze is a comedian and he has a couple of Netflix specials. If you haven't ever checked him out or ever heard of him, he's pretty big right now in the comedy world, and we've loved him ever since watching his Netflix specials. Now, his comedy is more family friendly, which is kind of cool. So there's not like a lot of crudeness, no swearing. It's just like, it's a good watch with family or with parents. So yeah, we bought these tickets. We're big fans. We bought these tickets about a year ago. And so we made a little night of it and it was really fun. And this is a little reminder to you that if you've never been to a comedy show, go to one. There's comedy clubs all over the place, but this was an amazing show. And so if you ever have a chance to see him live or even just watch his Netflix specials, because they're hilarious. Okay, that's my little personal update. Otherwise, we're just plugging away at the summit. We're about 2 months out now, which is really exciting. We are doing a lot of work on the back end, a lot of work with getting merch figured out, getting our shop figured out, because we're going to have a little merch shop. We're going to have merch available there, but then we're also going to be selling merch online too. And we are giving away a lot of free swag to attendees. So you're going to leave with a lot of awesome stuff. And so we're in the process of designing that, ordering that. That's always a really fun process. We are figuring out AV requirements, all that stuff for the actual event. I'm thinking that I will probably do like a full debrief podcast episode after the summit where I talk about everything that it took to put the summit together, because I actually think it's super fascinating. This is the first time we've ever done a live event, and I've learned so much in the process, and I've also just been like shocked and awed by a lot of things in the process. So I think it'd be really interesting to actually record a very in-depth episode on that, on like what's involved there, what does it take, costs. I think that would be super fascinating to share with you all, because in-person events are expensive. And yeah, I think it would be super interesting to talk about. So that'll likely come out after the summit. Okay, so today we are going to talk about the 3 topics of building boundaries into your business. We're going to talk about private practice in the age of telehealth companies like Nourish and Faye. Now, if you are a Canadian dietitian, I still think that this topic is going to be really interesting for you. But these are big telehealth companies that exist in the US. And then let's talk a little bit about business coaching and choosing a business coach. I'm going through that process right now of choosing a new business coaching program. And I get this question quite a bit. And I also get people coming to me for business coaching that have had experiences in the past with business coaches that didn't really feel super aligned. So let's talk about what those reasons are so that, you know, if you are choosing someone in the future, you can choose with a bit of a framework under your belt. Okay, let's get into it. First topic is around building boundaries into your business. Okay, the scenario is, I keep answering client messages at night. Just a quick one here and there because it'll only take a second. But lately, I've noticed I'm checking my phone during dinner. I feel resentful of clients who used to make me happy, and I can't remember the last time I actually unplugged. How do I actually build boundaries into my schedule before this turns into full burnout? Yes. Okay, so the very first thing that I want to say on this is that having no boundaries and responding immediately and being always available to people is not professional. It's not professional. It's really not. We think it is. We think that that's what like makes people happy or makes people satisfied with us and with the work that we do. I think a lot of times we do that from a place of insecurity of like, well, I'm insecure in what I'm doing, or I'm just like not totally confident yet. So I'm going to overcompensate by just being like overly available for people. And then they have to like me because I'm just giving. I say that because I've been there before, of course, as I think many of us have. And then the more mature you become in business, the more you realize how essential boundaries are. And Boundaries are for your happiness right now, but then also for the sustainability of your business, because setting boundaries now, even if you're not that busy, helps to ensure, so this piece around it'll only take a few minutes. Like if you're not that busy and you're like, oh, it's no problem, whatever. If you don't check it right now, that attitude is going to continue to follow you as your business builds and grows. And that is not scalable. And you're setting yourself up to end up in a place where you have way more clients and you are totally burnt out because you haven't learned the skill of setting those boundaries and deciding what your actual structure and life and business look like in a way that is sustainable for you. So that's so important to do. I think the biggest thing that I've learned when it comes to setting boundaries in your business is to decide what those boundaries are up front and be transparent with them. So what I mean by that is like decide when you are available to work with people or take appointments. Actually look at your calendar and actually make those decisions. What evenings? Are there weekends? Are there daytimes? Like make sure that your schedule is blocked out for any time that you are not going to be working with people. Because, and I said this in the last episode, like I think there's a lot of times there's this perception of like, well, I want my schedule to be available because I want people to be able to book at any point and I don't want to lose them if I'm not available during a time when they need to see me. It's like, no, I mean, think about if you went to somebody's schedule and you saw that their availability was like completely open, or you were like, you know, you sent a message to somebody and you're like, but could you see me on the weekend? And they send you a message back and they're like, oh, I don't normally do that, but I'll make an exception for you. That does not imply professionalism, right? That implies that like this person, a lot of time. So, you know, if I see an open schedule that has like open availability, the implication there is, oh, this person's obviously not that busy. That's not a great thing. That's actually probably the thing that's going to make me turn to someone else versus book with you, because I'll start to have questions, right? That's just natural human behavior. And then I also think, oh, this person really doesn't have boundaries. And if they're willing to see me on a Saturday, well, what else are they willing to do? You know, are they going to message me at all hours of night? Oh, I might as well try that out. Now, I'm not saying everybody will do this, but there will be people that will push those boundaries and that will test those boundaries. And that's why it's so important to have them set out up front. So make those decisions in advance. Decide, you know, what are your parameters around when you are working with people and when you are not? What are your parameters around when you are responding to people and when you are not? And actually lay those out in your client agreement. Like make it so clear, this is exactly what's happening when. Because if you don't do that, then there's a lot of room for misinterpretation, or there's a lot of room for, you know, differing expectations, right? And expectations not being met. Not because you didn't hold up your end of the bargain, but perhaps because somebody thought that what you were going to do is actually different than what you thought you were going to do. So making sure you have those expectations set out up front. So I'm going to give you an example of this. So for me, and I shared this in the last episode, but no worries if you haven't listened to it. For me right now, if you join our entrepreneurship program, our entrepreneurship tier of the membership, it starts with a one-on-one coaching call with me, business coaching call with me. And right now, because of the season of life that I'm in, where I have my baby at home with me, and so I have to be I'm so structured and so scheduled when it comes to when I work, when I'm available, when I'm not, because I have to have childcare, of course, during the times when I'm meeting with a client. And so because that's all very like pre-planned and pre-structured, there are only very specific time slots during the week when someone can book with me. And 90% of the time, they are from 12 to 1 p.m. MST. Because again, that's the time when I have consistent childcare. And so I don't have to, like, I'm not living with the stress of being like, oh, but can I find somebody in 2 weeks from now? No, I have it all set out. Like, this is what professionalism is. It is deciding what your schedule is and putting that in front of people. And I'm just very transparent with people up front. So like if you go to the sales page for entrepreneurship, like you see that like it says this is when those sessions typically tend to be. And so, and there's a little disclaimer there that's like, because this is the season of life that I'm in. But as of September, you know, things are going to open up a little bit more. So being very transparent, I have that in the client agreement. It's everywhere. But then the other piece to the entrepreneurship membership is we have this feature called on-demand business coaching. And that's where people can submit an audio or a video question to me, and then I will respond back within 48 hours. So 48 hours is a boundary. That is what we say, like within 48 hours, you will get a response. Now, the other thing that we're very transparent about is that we will respond on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And so those are really important boundaries to have. And that's fine. Like, people are totally fine with that. They get that as long as they understand going into the program and purchasing the program that these are the parameters, then that's fine. We're all on the same page, and that's a great thing. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that sometimes boundaries are a work in progress, meaning sometimes it requires you to make an oopsie and have no boundaries in a scenario to realize how important boundaries are and why you need boundaries. And so that's okay. That's a process. I'm still going through that process. I'm still learning, what is going to work for people. I'm still learning what's going to work for me. Boundaries may change based on the season of life that you're in. And so it's always good to just like readjust and reassess. But all in all, having no boundaries is not professional and it's not sustainable. So we need to get rid of that sort of always available, always open attitude. And the sooner you can learn that, the better. And the happier you will be as well. Okay. So next question is about private practice in the age of telehealth companies. So the scenario is companies like Nourish and Faye are scaling fast and taking on tons of insurance clients. So they are hiring dietitians at scale, and those dietitians take on insurance clients. And it feels like private practice dietitians are getting squeezed out. I'm nervous that if I don't take insurance, I won't be able to compete. What does this all mean for the future of private practice dietitians? Okay, so I think I'm still sort of figuring out what my response is to this, but I'm going to take a first stab at it. And then over time, I do think probably my perspective on this will become maybe richer. But relatively speaking, like these telehealth companies are relatively new to the game. We've only really seen the massive growth of these companies in the last few years, and I feel like we're hearing about them more at scale. Okay, so I think it's interesting, and there's so many different angles that we could consider here, but I'm just going to keep it simple, and I'm just going to say that do I still think that there's a place for private practice in the world of telehealth companies? Yes, absolutely, I do. And here's why. Because telehealth companies like Nourish and Faye have turned dietetic services, or really frame dietetic services, as a commodity. Now, what I mean by commodity is commodities are things that compete on price, right? Like when we're thinking about commodities, we're always thinking about price. And typically what's favorable is that price is lower. And so they've treated dietetic services they're framing dietetic services like a commodity. Now, I'm not saying that this is an inherently bad thing, because in a lot of cases, like, this is helping dietetic services become more accessible to more people. However, the reason why I say this is because what is going to be so important when you are creating your own private practice and building your own private practice is going to be brand, and is going to continue to be brand and differentiation. So the thing with these telehealth companies is, like, if you go to Nourish, and, I've gone through this process because I've been interested to just explore what it looks like and what it looks like on the front end for the user. When you go on these companies, like, you are really, there's a lot of dietitians on those platforms. There's a ton of dietitians on those platforms. The differentiation really comes down to, if I say that I have type 2 diabetes, like, it's going to show me all the dietitians that have type 2 diabetes listed under the areas that they work with, and reviews. I can look at reviews. But beyond that, like, there's really not much differentiation between practitioners and providers. And so I'm just sort of like choosing at scale, right? Like, I'm just choosing from this big list of people. So then what's the difference between that and between, the private practice dietitian that you find on Instagram, or you find through a Google search or through an AI search? Well, what's going to be different is the know, like, and trust factor that you're able to build with them because of their brand and how they are putting themselves out there into the world, and how they are choosing to be portrayed, and how are they choosing to present themselves and to build trust with you. Now, we're doing a whole session, actually a couple sessions, on brand at the Dietitian Success Summit, because this is so important. because how you put yourself, or even just your company, if you are not the face of your business, how you put your company into the world, how you present it in the world, it says something about who you are, what you offer, who your services are meant for, and what somebody can expect when they work with you. And so that's going to become even more important. I also think that differentiation is going to become even more important. Differentiation in brand, but I also think differentiation in niche, and perhaps niching even further and becoming even more specialized in something that's very specific. And I'll give you an example of that. I have a friend here who has a son that has had some feeding challenges. And there is a dietitian in the States who is super specialized, super focused in this one area of pediatrics. Super specialized, super focused. Now, my friend found this dietitian on Instagram, and she is like, oh, this is the person that is clearly meant to help me with this thing, because this dietitian has a very solid track record of being able to help people with that exact very, very specific thing. Now, my friend has tried working with other dietitians in the past, ones that are a little bit more generalized, even general pediatrics, generalized, and they have not gotten the result that they need. And so now they're looking for the specialist approach, and they are paying out of pocket for that. Absolutely, they're paying out of pocket for that. Not everyone's going to pay out of pocket for something, and that's part of business, of course, but some people still will. And so, there's going to be continue to be these scenarios where we, having that like very niche specialization is going to become very important. And so, I think that piece, brand and specialization, are just going to continue to become so important. The other thing I want to just say about this is there's still a place for private practice dietitians. 100%. Absolutely. Why do I say that? Well, because there will never be a shortage of nutrition-related challenges that people need help with. Nutrition-related conditions are make up the biggest public health issues we have around the world. There is no shortage of people that need help from a dietitian. Yes, some of them are going to get support from dietitians at companies like Nourish or Faye, but some of them will be looking for a different option, or will find you on Instagram and will really resonate with what you have to say and will make the choice to work with you because they feel comfortable with you. They feel like they have a sense of who you are and that you can help them get the result that they're looking for. So, I do not believe that private practice or dietitians are going anywhere. I just think we have to, it's so important that dietitians really do, take a minute to think about, well, how am I different from these telehealth companies? Like, how am I different? How am I presenting myself? Why would someone choose me over a dietitian at one of those companies? That's super easy because they don't have to pay anything out of pocket, right? Like, the differentiation can't be on price. It has to be on something else, because if it's on price, they're going to win. So we need to really think about that, and we really need to consider that. The other thing I want to say on this too is look at all the nutrition coaches and health coaches out there that are absolutely thriving. Go and check on Instagram and search health coach or nutrition coach. You're going to see some massive profiles and massive companies. These are people that are never covered by insurance, and yet they're still thriving, right? So we just have to paint a different picture for ourselves. We have to make sure that we are differentiating ourselves, and we are embracing brand, and we are really putting ourselves out there in a very intentional way that makes somebody say, yeah, you know what? I want to work with Krista because she really seems like she really knows what she's talking about. I resonate with her. I like her. I would feel comfortable with her. And she has the track record for me to feel confident that she can help me get from A to B. Okay, so that's my response right now, but I'm interested to continue to learn more about this. We have a blog post on this topic about telehealth companies. We did it last year. It's actually one of our most popular blog posts on our website because we were seeing so many dietitians talk about this topic in Facebook groups and asking like, oh, is Nourish better? Is Faye better? Like, what are the pros and cons, blah, blah, blah. And so we actually did a survey of 100 dietitians who have worked for these different companies to gather data around what the process is like to get hired, what you get paid, what some of the pros and cons are, etc. So it's a really great blog post. It gets a lot of attention. I would just Google Dietitian Success Center telehealth companies, and you'll find the blog post. It's a pretty interesting read. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, then give that a read so that you understand what people are talking about when they talk about Nourish and Faye and Berry Street, etc. There's many other companies. Those are just the biggest ones that are most top of mind. Okay, next question is about looking for a business coach. So I've been looking at business coaches, and honestly, I keep getting drawn to ones with the most polished Instagram, 6-figure launches, big group programs. But I'm still trying to land my first 5 clients. Am I overthinking this, or does it actually matter that a coach's experience matches the season I'm actually in right now? So I'm going to answer this as someone who is a business coach and does business coaching. By the way, like, I have been so sort of allergic to the term business coach. I think because there's so much, and I'm sure you've all been there when you started a business Instagram and like suddenly you started getting follows or like DMs from all these like quote unquote coaches. There's just a lot of people out there in the business coaching world that I feel like are just, I don't know. There's a lot of disingenuousness. There's a lot of just like painting the picture of like these big, big results without actually talking about the realities. There's just like a lot of ness that I just don't like. And I've always tried to like really separate myself from that. And so I've gone through the process of being like, well, do I want to call myself a business strategist? Like, how do I get around this? And I don't think there is any getting around this. And I think actually the term business coach, that is the most recognized term for like what I do. And so I feel that it's important that I just like meet people where they're at and just like call myself a business coach. But, with some nuance that I feel like I don't think I do business coaching like a lot of other people do business coaching. That's not to throw shade at anyone. That is just how I am. Okay, so I'll tell you a couple of the things that I've heard from dietitians, which has been challenging for them if they've worked with other business coaches. I've had dietitians say to me that one of the things that they struggled with past coaching programs is that it taught a very specific thing or skill. And they didn't really feel like they felt like they mapped out that one specific thing or skill in their program, they don't feel like they really got a super well-rounded perspective beyond that. Like there's still a lot of unanswered questions for them. So an example of that would be like a program development. Like they'll be like, oh, I developed a signature program, but I actually don't know what to do with it. I've also heard a lot of dietitians mention that they worked with coaches who were not dietitians, and they felt like there was a lot of marketing or sales strategies that didn't feel aligned for them as a health provider, or were actually things that like would be considered probably unethical as a health provider. And so, I say that to say those are probably the two most common things that I see when dietitians say, I've tried coaching before and it just didn't feel quite right for me. So again, I say that to say, that's an important thing to consider when you are choosing a business coach is like, what are you actually learning here? And what do you actually want to learn here? And look at that like very critically and think about that. Think about what you actually need from this and what you're actually going to do from it. And is it actually going to feel good for you? So that's the other thing too, is like just because something works well for somebody else doesn't mean it's going to work for you. Perfect example of this is I joined a few years ago. I saw this guy on Instagram. He had like very compelling sales messages, and he was doing this membership, this sales DM, Instagram DM sales program membership. And I think it was like $100 a month. And I was like, you know what? This looks great. Like, look at all these results that people are getting. And so I joined this program. And within 10 minutes of joining the program, I was like, I literally hate this. I will never do any of this because it was so misaligned with me as a person. Now, there is something to be said for just learning new approaches. Of course, you're not always going to feel so comfortable the first time you market yourself or you sell your services, but it should never feel like you are, selling your soul. Like, there's a difference between feeling uncomfortable because you've never done it before and there's a learning curve, and being like, this feels just like icky for me. I hate this. It's like a very visceral feeling. There would be messages that he'd be like, yeah, send this to someone. And I'd just be like, that is so manipulative. It's just like I hate this. I will never use it. So I got a refund. So anyways, all that to say, I've been there before. I've totally fallen for like the shiny object Instagram content, but it's important to be critical. What are you actually learning? What do you actually want to learn? Do you feel like the way this person presents themselves and markets themselves is how you would actually want to do it yourself? Because that's the thing, is like, if I'm marketing myself a certain way, that's how I'm going to teach other people to market themselves. I'm not going to be teaching other people a marketing strategy that is different than like my marketing philosophy. So yeah, look at them online, observe them, and ask yourself, like, do I feel good about this? Do I like this? I always think like podcasting is the best way to be able to vet somebody, because there's no other platform like podcasting that really gives you a sense of like who somebody is and their philosophies and their personality and whether you would trust them. That's the other thing, whether you would trust them. So give their podcast a listen if they have one. If they don't, like, really binge their Instagram content, don't be afraid to ask them too for somebody that they've worked with that you could connect with. Now, the challenge there though too is if you do ask for that, they're going to give you their best case studies, obviously. So take it with a grain of salt, but I think you really need to have a good like gut feeling about somebody, and does it feel like they are the right personality fit for you? And do they feel like, does their approach feel authentic for you as well? And like something you would want to replicate or mimic? I think that those are really important components. There's a lot to be said here, but and I've talked about this topic before, but I wanted to take a bit of a different approach to it. And of course, if you are interested in business coaching as a dietitian, I would love to chat with you. We have our entrepreneurship tier of our membership. Because we've been so focused on the summit right now, we haven't really done a big launch of the entrepreneurship tier. We kind of slow rolled it out starting in March. We've had business programming in the past before, and this was kind of a revamp of our business programming. So we did a soft launch in March and have been just like growing it kind of quietly behind the scenes ever since, which has been really fun to see. But it's there for you, and I would absolutely love to work with you. If you're just like wondering, you're not sure, just send me a DM on Instagram at christico.rd. I'm more than happy to chat with you about it, or just submit a question via our contact form. Okay, well, I hope you got something out of this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you love this podcast, please share it with your friends. That's the best way for it to get in front of new people. I love doing this podcast. I love all of you that continue to listen to this podcast. And thank you. Thank you. And thank you for those of you that have left reviews recently too. That has been super, super, super helpful. I so appreciate that. Okay, I hope you have an awesome rest of your day, and I will see you in the next episode.